Who's thinking about you now? If you were building a wall, or who would tear it all down and pull you through? Or who's thinking about you?
Welcome to Thoughts. As you know, of course, I'm Josie James. If you've been watching this for a while, you're going, okay, why is he still on? Hasn't he been canceled yet? Now, this one's on domestic violence, and I'm covering the various, got a couple of interviews lined up for this, just got to get the time to interview them, so this is the little pre-speech thing, whatever you want to call it. There's several types of domestic violence that I'm going to be covering. There's physical, there's sexual, there's marital rape, there's emotional, which is psychological abuse. There's verbal, which to me is still the same thing. It's pretty much calling people names. We all do that. There's economic, which this is kind of, to me, really bad, where it's, victim pretty much, the other person controls all the money and they have nothing. That's bad. Also, gender by victim, it's kind of screwy. But male, it's 6%, women, it's 7%. So that's like, and there's still people on men being victims. Yes, that does happen too. That's there's it has various aliases. Domestic violence. It's also called domestic abuse, spousal abuse, familial abuse. It includes physical aggression, or assault, threats, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, controlling or domineering, intimidation, stalking, all that. In the Western countries, it's generally outlawed, but in developing countries, it can be a little crazy. In fact, there's a couple of countries, I believe, in 2010, the United Arab Emirates Supreme Court ruled that a man has the right to physically discipline his wife and children as long as he doesn't leave physical marks. Yeah, that's just cute. So basically, justice systems do differ on this. Now, really quick, I'm going by male to female. Now, with male victims, a lot of it I'm looking at and the reasons why it's done the way it is. If you think about it, it's not, oh, no, she could never have. It's a machismo thing, macho thing. No woman would ever. No. And meanwhile, he's going home and she's beating me with a frying pan. So it happens whether you're male or female. Okay, but as far as what's reported goes, physical or sexual, males 6%, females 7%. So as far as serious injury goes, 15% males reporting in, 23% females. The higher levels of physical and sexual abuse, as far as the showing with males, 18%, females 44%. And a fear for life, as far as that they're afraid for their lives, as far as who's reporting in goes. With males, you got 10%, females 34%. So that's saying something. Again, it's as far as males go, as far as I'm concerned, it's just macho trip. The woman could have threatened to cut off all types of things. And for those saying, well, men don't get fit. Excuse me, do we need to bring up Lorena Bobbitt? Really? Do I need to bring up Lorena Bobbitt? Come on. That's kind of sad that the man's working himself to death and she's mad because he can't get it up. He's dead tired. That's pathetic. So I do have some interviews lined up for this. I'll be interviewing one girl tomorrow, and a man who, strangely enough, was charged with domestic violence, but he was the one that had to have surgery. More on that later. Okay, this is the second part of the interview, of course, with thoughts on, as I was saying, domestic violence from yesterday. This is Emily. Now, she has an interesting story to tell. Now, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go ahead and let her just start telling what happened. Now, remember, as I said, with this equipment, even though this is, I now have a better hookup, that's what this is here for. For the sound, you still need to speak up clearly so we can hear you. Okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Now, go ahead and start telling us what happened. And as I feel the need, I'll interject and ask some questions. So.
Okay, so I moved up here on February, and I moved in with this guy named Chad. And Chad, we had been talking through Skype, and he seemed like this really down-to-earth person, and he wasn't. We were dating, and we broke up, and that is when things started to go downhill quite quickly. He started drinking, all the time. And at first, it was just, the in my face, the intimidation. And from that, it turned into like, a shove, just like a little tight shove. And then, it's, oh, baby, I love you. I love you. It's never going to happen again, ever. And that was not true. It escalated quite quickly. And then one day, I came home from school, and I was running a little bit behind. I had lab until late in the evening, and he was intoxicated. And he had backed me into a corner and had held a knife to my throat and told me to take off my clothes. And for fear for my life, I took off my clothing, and he proceeded to rape me. It's happened multiple times. And finally, everything came to a head. I had to go to the hospital. I had to have surgery, internal bleeding, my appendix had to be taken out. I didn't tell a lot of my friends what was going on.
Well, there were a couple of friends of yours that threatened me.
Well, yes. There were people, friends of mine, who were aware of what was going on, but couldn't understand. There were a couple of my friends who didn't understand why I didn't just leave. Well, it was, that fear of I had no place to go. My parents don't live up here. I'm up here for school. I'm trying to do school, and all this other shit is going on. And so after surgery, I came home, and friends helped me pack up my stuff, and I left, and I went to a domestic violence shelter, and I got some help.
Now, well, one thing I will say, and even though I've been told wrong, I do know who the two friends were that challenged him. One of them was me. I'm gonna be, because he apparently videotaped me hiding in his window, crying behind the camera. See, a lot of these people who feel the need to dominate and be forceful, they can't handle being confrontation. They're cowards. In all seriousness, they are cowards. And here I am, this little old country faggot, and he's hiding from me. True, I'm quite capable of breaking limbs, but I was just going to talk to him about keeping his hands to himself. So,
you could hear him crying in the background. I mean, clearly he knew that he was doing something wrong and he had been caught. Up until about a couple weeks ago, after I moved out, he started following me, stalking. I now have a restraining order, no worries, but it was pretty extreme. He knew that I was pressing charges, and he knew that just his career was going to be over with, and it is. So
now, for those of you that are wondering, no, Chad is not his real name. Because of the possibility of this being used on the radio show and the possibility of slander, I am going along with not saying his name. Oh, honestly, I don't care. The man's name's Troy Messick. He's an army driver, and he works at a nursing home. So if you know this son of a bee, and you happen to know where he's living now, let me know. I still want to break his legs. But, is there anything you want to add on this?
I mean, my whole thing is, it's like, not just women get abused, men do too.
And I'll be covering that on another segment. Believe it or not, I have another interview on that.
Oh, okay. Well, my advice to anybody out there is that talk to your friends about it, because, your friends, if they're your true friends, they're going to try and help you and get you out of that situation. And then please, for the love of God, if someone hits you, go press charges, get a restraining, or hit him back. But don't just, and that's a mistake that I made. I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid to, because I was afraid that no one was going to understand. Yeah, don't be afraid.
That's my big thought on this is don't be afraid. Now, if you're the one doing the hitting and don't think you're doing anything wrong, and this includes, as I said on the earlier segment about Lorena Bobbitt, I'm a country kid. I've fought with girls. I've fought with my sisters. I have no fear of their husbands ever making the mistake of hitting them. Why? Because these girls will clock them. So, in fact, actually, I fear for the husbands a little bit. But this is it for this segment, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of the next segment here in a bit, because I have another interview with a person who, unfortunately, was accused of doing domestic violence, and he didn't. All he did was defend himself. So this is it for this segment, and we'll have the next segment here in a couple of seconds. Okay, we're back with our second interview. This is Bryce, and again, as I did with the former girl, Annie, he has a situation that happened not too long ago, and he's going to talk about it. So, Bryce, if you want to go ahead and start talking about what happened when you ended up getting charged with domestic violence.
Well, actually, I got charged with disorderly conduct, but I had a roommate who was not pleasant, and when I found out they were doing things in my house that they ought not be doing, there was a conversation had, and the next day the person turned violent. And rather than me calling the police or anything, I just decided to let it go, thinking it would end. And it all culminated at night. I was going upstairs, and she grabbed my legs as I was going up the stairs. So I turned around and I kicked her down off of me, and instead I got charged because the law is written in favor of females.
Okay, now you're not telling the whole of what you told me before, though. She was hitting you with something?
I said that it was violent.
Okay.
Start over.
No, it's okay. Okay. One for clarification, because I think he's a little nervous in front of the camera.
No,
for little Bracey.
I can't go into details because it's a...
Okay, well, one, you don't have to say names, but you can say, because I do know...
Okay, so yeah, earlier in the day...
she had been hitting you with...
She punched me in a Walmart because my mom wouldn't buy her groceries, which wasn't my mom's place. That night I found out she was dealing crystal meth, and she was... dealing drugs out of my house, which put my lease in danger. And
then she turned around. What was she hitting you with specifically? Because I know you said you had to have surgery.
It was I didn't have to. I had to have my face stitched, but it was a metal rack that she had dumped a TV and stuff off of, and a remote control. She had thrown things, and that night, like I said, when I was avoiding her by going upstairs, I got dragged down the steps and in turn had to back kick. And when I back kicked, she went down the stairs and went outside, and people asked what was wrong. Rather than saying she was being violent, she said that people had hurt her.
And so, as I said, as I've said before, with any situation,
however, to be fair, the law is written in favor of women. I was told after I got arrested that they let me go the next morning after arraignment because the judge had gone through the statements. What it came down to was my handwritten statement and her handwritten statement all matched up except for 3 things. The judge knew that the fact that I was willing to put those things in there and she wasn't showed that she was hiding something. Then they had, I guess it's called a victim's advocate. She had pushed it all the way they took her to the emergency room to be checked out, and the victim's advocate had a whole third story that had not occurred between the 2 written statements. And with that, the judge had all this evidence that I had been honest. He let me go on disorderly conduct instead of a domestic violence or an assault because he knew that the fighting wasn't right. And to be honest, he said that I would not have been charged with anything except that the law is written in favor of women or whoever picks up the phone and calls the police first. And that is the only way a man will get out of a charge is if they call the police first. However, at that time, if a man calls, both parties are charged, not just the female, both parties. And so the person who was violent with me never got in trouble because of how the law is written.
And unfortunately, well, for those who watch my show and maybe aren't aware yet, this is here at the law in Ohio. It might be different in your state. Unfortunately, as I said before when I was giving off the stats, there are a lot of men who, it's a macho image. And they've got bruises and everything else from whether women are hitting them or it's an acquaintance and it does go back and forth. Now, mind you, it doesn't have to be between male and female, it can be male and male. After all, to bring up a famous thing, Adam Lambert beat up his boyfriend. We don't know what that was about. Maybe the guy punched him first. We don't know, but they were fighting. So that's, domestic violence is...
Look at what just happened in the news. George Zimmerman is found not guilty. They had 2 charges. They had manslaughter, or I believe it was second degree murder.
That's actually a completely different segment. That's actually racism.
Let me explain. The jury was given I believe, second degree murder or manslaughter. Their other choices were self or stand your ground. Some states have a stand your ground law, which is this. Self-defense says if you are attacking me, I can use equal force to get you. If you're yelling in my face, I can't punch you. That's not self-defense. If you're yelling in my face and I want to yell back, I can. That would be equal force. It would be, no. I'm getting there in a second. This is still self-defense. I can do equal force. Stand your ground is a law that is in some states that says if you're yelling in my face and I'm to the point where I feel like I'm in danger, I can use blunt force. I can go 3 steps past. I can use the force that I want to, quote, stand my ground with you. And if that means I knock you out and you were only yelling, then that goes it. And so in the George Zimmerman case, like, the reason that played out and he got not guilty is because they can't use stand your ground. They don't know what happened with Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman. They also don't know, it wasn't, for all intents and purposes, it could be self-defense, but you have to look at the fact that this guy had a gun on his waist, okay?
And
this kid might have been jumping him, but the police had also told him, stay in your car, let us take care of it. That wasn't followed, so that's not why this brought up. But as a violent thing goes, there is no stand your ground law in Ohio. It would still actually not apply between a male and a female. And if the law was written better, it wouldn't be domestic because you live together. Domestic would be a specific relationship. We are together because you had this person who was a lesbian, in my case, and me, and we were never in a relationship. Therefore, it was never domestic. What made it domestic under Ohio law is that we lived under the same roof.
And that, to me, is the point as far as domestic violence goes. Too many people do think that it means their husband and wife, or their boyfriend, girlfriend, or their boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, or boyfriend and dog. That's a completely different story. But that's why I say, and as I've said before on this show, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and end this for now, a lot of times you think you know what's happened, don't be sure. That's why I always say, check the facts, look at both sides of the story, and make up your own mind.
Well,
and don't listen to some idiot like me telling you what you're supposed to think.
But
think for yourself.
Also, just as a recap, though, like, I would have been not in trouble, I would have never gotten arrested if I would have picked up the phone and called the police first. However, you're not thinking that after you've been fought with. You're thinking, okay, this will cool down, we've taken separate corners, we'll talk, and it's never okay to assume that. Because if the person wants to continue being violent, or try to get the upper hand, and in my case, it was my apartment, the person wanted to stay there, she called the police. So the law is not written in favor of anybody, unless you're the first one to make the phone call.
Exactly. Well, as I said, this is Thoughts for Today, and as I said before, and to recap what I always say at the end of this, think for yourself. Make the judgment call on taking a look at both sides of an issue, and don't listen to some loudmouth politician, religious figure, whatever have you, try and tell you how you're supposed to think. Make the decision for yourself. This is Thoughts, and I'm your host, Josie James, and until next time, have a good day.
Who's thinking about you now? If you were building a wall, or who would tear it all down and pull you through? Or who's thinking about you